Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, my friends, this is the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, number 4, with your host, Rep Recluse, and welcome. My voice has come back. It is tanned, rested, and ready to go, so we're going to get right to it here. I'm very, very happy to do this one. This is going to be a retrospective of a gentleman who had quite a prolific career here in Edmonton in the late 60s and all through the 70s and early 80s. His name was Jack Hennig. He was a very prolific singer-songwriter. A lot of different Edmonton artists and a lot of artists all around Canada copied his songs or did his songs, and it was really interesting about Jack's stuff. He would play basically anywhere that you would find in the 70s, from roadhouses to lounges to nightclubs, anywhere that that was around in Edmonton and Calgary and in Alberta at the time. And his career kind of stretched the gamut of what you can do basically as a genre. He started off with his band called The Breaking Point, doing straight ahead garage rock, psychedelic music, kind of drifted into a folk music in the early 70s, and went to the more AM gold, middle of the road stuff as we headed into the mid 70s, and finally settled into a country music groove in the late 70s and the early 80s. And it's to his credit that he could pull everything off as well as he did. So the very first one I want to play for you is, again, one of the very first 45 vintage Edmonton 45s that I picked up. It's a mainstay in my collection. Very, very rare. You find it on eBay. It goes for a pretty penny. This is a 45 that was produced by his group, or made by his group, called Jack Hennig and the Breaking Point from 1967. This is a garage rock version of a song that Randy and Sue did that I spotlighted on the podcast number 2 that they did in the late 70s. This is a song called Maybe Tomorrow. This is Jack's version of it, original version of it, with his band called The Breaking Point. So here he is, Jack Hennig and the Breaking Point from 1967 with his song called Maybe Tomorrow on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Jack Hennig and the Breaking Point from 1967 with a song called Maybe Tomorrow. Now, the new stuff that he put out after the Breaking Point broke up was just Jack by himself. He recorded a couple albums on Birchmont Records, which is part of the Quality Records chain that was very big in the early 70s and mid-70s in Canada with Canadian content. The first one I'm going to play for you is the title track of the album. I believe that it came out in 1970s, recorded here in Edmonton at Damon Recording Studios, and this is the title track of the album called Lisa Brown. This is Lisa Brown. If you notice a little bit of a similarity music-wise or melody-wise to the Merle Haggard classic called Sing Me Back Home, yeah, it's got a little bit of the same kind of chord changes and stuff going in there, but it's a very good song by itself and it stands on its own. So the first song is going to be Lisa Brown. The second one I'm going to play for you right after that is from his second Birchmont LP, which is called Canadian Breed, and this one is really interesting also. The flip side of the Jack Hennig and Breaking Point or 45 that I originally played for you, Maybe Tomorrow, this is the song called Busy People, which was on that flip side. Originally, the Busy People song on the Jack Hennig and the Breaking Point was, again, straight ahead rock and roll. It was a very interesting song. It was a protest song to the most part, kind of along the same lines as Ray Stevens' song Mr. Businessman, which is a very good song. Talked about busy people and the way that they kind of go through life without seeing the things that they should see. And Jack's version of it on his second album, Canadian Breed, is a little bit more relaxed version than one that was on the 45. I wanted to play this for you because I think it's the better version of the two, and I hope you like this one. So, the first one I'm going to be playing to you, this is Lisa Brown off his first LP of the same title, and the second one that's going to be coming up right after that is Busy People off the album from 1971, The Canadian Breed by Jack Hennig, here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
In a place outside of town lives a girl named Lisa Brown. Her eye was to marry and be her man, but the sheriff came to me one day and said, son, we have to take you away. And every day since that day, I send a message to her. Tell someone you love them. Tell someone you care. Tell someone you need them all of the time. If you tell them you love them, make sure that you care, and that you will love them all of your life. Now 2 years passed since that day, and Folsom Prison is where I'll stay, and think of Lisa Brown until my dying day. And the sad look upon her face when the sheriff came to take me away, and a tear had fell on the message I was writing to her. Tell someone you love them. Tell someone you care. Tell someone you need them all of the time. If you tell them you love them, make sure that you care, and that you will love them all of your life. In a church outside of town stands a bride named Lisa Brown, and beside her stands a man to call her his own. As I think about time gone by, I'd be better off to die, 'cause Lisa Brown don't need my message no more. People are always complaining that their life is fading away. They don't seem to realize there's people they should sympathize today. Think of those who need loving. Think of those who need care. Think of those who are dying in the world. People are always saying there ain't no time for praying in the world. If they're so good at preaching, why don't they start teaching this damn world? Usually those who are preaching, they're the ones who need teaching. They're the ones who should think of what they say. What's made people like they are today? Everyone is acting in a selfish sort of way. Everyone is right, yet everyone is wrong. Before long we'll all find out we're wrong. People are always complaining that their life is fading away. They don't seem to realize there's people they should sympathize today. Think of those who need loving. Think of those who need care. Think of those who are dying in the world. In the world. In the world.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, number 4, featuring Jack Hennig. And the next one I want to play for you is off an album called Going My Way, which might be the most obscure or the most rare of all of the stuff that I have of Jack's. I'm not really sure when it was put out. There's another album called Jack Hennig Sings that was produced in 1973 that has a lot of the same covers that this particular record, Going My Way, has. This album was, I'm assuming, recorded at the Project 70 studios. The label says Apollo 70 Records, so I'm going to give it pretty much a thumbs up that it was recorded there around the same lines or along the same times as Jack Hennig Sings, which again was 1973. Mostly covers, if not all covers, so I'm assuming this is something that he would have sold by this time, and all of his gigs during the early 70s at roadhouses, at lounges and nightclubs, where he was in the middle of his AM Gold, middle of the road phase, sliding into the country genre. And the song that I'm going to play for you now is a classic Charlie Pride song called "Is Anybody Going to San Antone?" And again, he gives it the Jack Hennig treatment, and it's very good. And the next one I'm going to play for you right after that, it's an album that was released in 1976 on the Mustard label, and it is called Lady Highway. And this is going to be the title track from the Lady Highway album. And again, by this time, Jack was full-fledged into the country music genre, and he gives us his own little twist to it, and it's very good stuff. This one, Lady Highway, is just about half covers and half Jack Hennig originals. Again, I like this one a lot. The song Lady Highway, again, is going to be a cover, the title track anyway. It was written by Franklin Ferguson, but I really like this song. So, starting things off, it's going to be Jack Hennig from the Going My Way album with his the classic Charlie Pride song, Is Anybody Going to San Antone? And then right after that, Jack Hennig, Lady Highway, the title track from his Lady Highway album here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
Rain dripping down the brim of my hat, sure is cold today. Here I am walking down 66, wish he hadn't done me that way. Sleeping under a table in a roadside park, a man could wake up dead. But it sure seems warmer than it did, sleeping in our king-size bed. Is anybody going to San Antone or Phoenix, Arizona? Any place is alright as long as I can't forget I'll ever know her. When whipping down the neck of my shirt like I ain't got nothing on, I'd rather fight the wind and rain than what I've been fighting back home. Yonder comes a tractor with a U.S. mail, people writing letters back home. Tomorrow she'll probably want me back, but I will be still just as gone. Is anybody going to San Antonio or Phoenix, Arizona? Any place is alright as long as I can't forget I'll ever know her. Yeah. Is anybody going to San Antonio or Phoenix, Arizona? Got that restless feeling, some kind of heavy load. Start packing in the morning, hello there country road. You must be the lady who calls for me. Whenever you see me sitting here restlessly, out to the wild beyonder, guitar in my hand. I don't know where I'll wander, any place I can. You must be the lady who calls for me. Whenever you see me sitting here restlessly, early in the morning is the sad time she lays, simply fitting feelings flying faster than my gaze. I've just called the answers to the questions that I raise, waiting patiently. She always waits for me. It's a restless, powerful feeling, cause it's in my soul, like riding on an iceberg when you get to feeling old. You must be the lady who calls for me. Whenever you see me sitting here restlessly, the seven seas are rolling, the river's near and wide. You must be the lady who calls for me. Whenever you see me sitting here restlessly, early in the morning as the sun climbs through the haze, simply feeling feelings flying faster than my gaze. I always call the answers to the questions that I raise, waiting patiently. She always waits for me. I got that restless feeling, some kind of heavy load. Still packing in the morning, hello there country road. You must be the lady who calls for me. Whenever you see me sitting here restlessly,
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, number 4, spotlighting Jack Hennig. And the last song that I'm going to play for you on the podcast is a song that was off the album called The Poet, from 1978, again recorded here in town at Damon Recording Studios on the Denim label. And the song that I'm going to play for you is a charting record on the country music charts. It hit number 12 in 1978, and this is, I guess, is Jack's biggest hit. This is a song called George the Hermit, another Jack Hennig original. So this is Jack Hennig with George the Hermit, hitting number 12 on the Canadian music country charts in 1978 here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
shack by the riverside. You can see him wave as you're paddling by, and it makes you smile, 'cause he's a happy old guy. As he sits down by the fireside, you can see the flames dance in his eyes, and he talks to me about his life so free. You don't need the noise and traffic light races, concrete cities with plastic faces at all. You'd rather sit down by the riverside, pick an old guitar as the boats go by. Said he never owned nothing but an old guitar, found it in a case on a railroad car. Said he learned to play in about 3 days. He drinks homemade wine from a homemade cup. He knocks it back and then he wishes you luck and hope you come again to take a listen to him. You don't need the noise and traffic light races, concrete cities with plastic faces at all. He'd rather sit down by the riverside, pick an old guitar as the boats go by. He lives in a shack by the riverside. You can see him wave as you're paddling by, and it makes you smile, 'cause he's a happy old guy. He drinks homemade wine from a homemade cup. He knocks it back and then he wishes you luck and hope you come again to take a listen to him. You don't need the noise and traffic light races, concrete cities with plastic faces at all. He'd rather sit down by the riverside, pick an old guitar as the boats go by. You don't need the noise and traffic light races, concrete cities with plastic faces at all. You'd rather sit down by the riverside, pick an old guitar as the boats go by.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Jack Hennig with George the Hermit, charting at number 12 on the Canadian country music charts in 1978. So that's it, folks. That's the end of the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed that. Again, Jack is one of my favorite Vintage Edmonton music artists, and I'm very, very glad that I can spotlight him here on the podcast for all you fine people out there, and I hope you enjoyed that. So what am I going to play next for the next podcast? Number 5, which will be out in approximately 2 weeks. This is a really cool one for me. This is one of the best known Edmonton bands from the Edmonton scene in the 70s. And this is the band called One Horse Blue. And if you've been around in Edmonton, or if you're a lifer in Edmonton, you know who I'm talking about. This is going to be off of the album released in 1978 called One Horse Blue. So I hope you enjoy that. And again, this should be out in a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. So until then, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you later.